You're watching Network Africa on Channels Television. Welcome again. After 37 years, he still can't get enough of governance, that is. We're talking about Equatorial Guinea's President Teodoro Obiang Nguema, who won re-election with 93.7% of votes cast on April 24th. Africa's longest-serving leader has been in power since 1979 when he staged a bloody military coup and ousted his uncle, who was later executed. Obiang's closest challenger in the polls was Avelino Mukaki Benga, who won just 1.5% of the votes according to complete provisional results. Now, a press statement released earlier said the turnout was 92.9%. With territory divided between the African mainland and islands in the Gulf of Guinea, Equatorial Guinea boasts of having the highest GDP per capita in Africa, all thanks to extensive oil and gas reserves. However, it does rank 144 of the 187 states listed in the on the United Nations 2014 Human Rights Development Index. Our critics say oil money is funneled to a rich elite while much of the country lives in poverty. Back in 2004, U.S. Senate's probe showed millions of dollars channeled by Obiang and his relatives into the disgraced Riggs Bank. Security has been heightened in the Mozambican capital, Maputo, after security forces were deployed on the streets a day after anti-government demonstrations circulated on social media. Several anonymous messages spread via SMS and WhatsApp said groups were planning to march on Friday, that's today, against government corruption, in particular secret borrowing that could cripple the economy in one of the world's poorest countries. Armored vehicles packed with police armed with automatic weapons were stationed on major street corners, although there was no sign of unrest. Police said on Wednesday that the public not do anything to unsettle harmonious coexistence in the war-scarred former Portuguese colony. At the roots of the public anger is as much as $1.35 billion in loans taken out in secret by state companies, one of which is owned by the Interior and Defense Ministries and the State Security Agency. Yesterday, Britain followed the IMF and World Bank in suspending aid payments in light of a serious breach of trust created by the recently disclosed borrowing, which analysts say could ultimately trigger a debt default. That long-expected unity government has been formed in South Sudan. Late Thursday, President Salva Kiir named a new cabinet, including former rebels and members of the opposition. The decree read out on state television and radio said a third of the ministries in the new 30-member National Unity Cabinet were members of the SPLM-IO party, led by Kiir's long-term rival Riek Machar. Fighting broke out between both men's supporters in the capital in December 2013 after Kiir sacked Machar as first vice president. That triggered ethnically charged clashes across the oil producer that the UN says has killed thousands of people and forced more than 2.3 million people from their homes. Under pressure from the United States, the United Nations and other powers, both sides have signed a peace deal. They did that in August, but it broke down repeatedly. Mr. Bashar returned to Juba on Tuesday and was swiftly given back his old job. I'll be joined by Dr. Emmanuel Ona of the Political Science Department at the University of Lagos for more on this. Dr. Ona, thank you for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you, Amanda.
Great to hear you again. Has it been worth the wait for this unity government?
Come again.
Has it been worth the wait? The unity government finally been formed. Has it been worth it waiting all this time?
Yeah, I think the unity government in South Sudan is a welcome development. It is actually unfortunate that the events that happened in South Sudan happened over the past 2 years. The youngest country in the world, came up with a whole lot of hope. People were sure that this country will do well, considering the long period of civil war before they became independent. And it was unfortunate that at independence, the leaders, specifically the president, Chair, and his then vice, he is now the vice, Machar, we are not agreeing on major issues of government, and then the violence broke. Today, with the new government of national unity, I think hope is coming back. And if everything works as planned, I think South Sudan will see back to back to progress.
Dr. Ona, about this government, we've seen this sort of arrangements in the past. We saw it in Zimbabwe, to be exact, where President Robert Mugabe had to share power with Mr. Changirai, and that eventually broke down. Is this a wise move in the long run?
No, in the long run, I think that South Sudan will have no option but to conduct general elections. The timing of the elections is what this government should really immediately tackle and come up with a time frame for elections. Once elections come, then consequent events will now determine the direction the country will take. It is at those elections that both Kiir and Masha will now decide how they want to move, the direction their politics will move. In terms of whether they will contest singly or they will contest together. So that even if there is not peace between the two of them as individuals, then the elections will afford them the opportunity to go their individual ways without reigniting another side. So in that case, my party will go their way and contest, and then party will also contest the election, and then whoever will now lead the country in a new beginning, so to say. So I think the unity government now is what they need for the moment, is what they need for the short term. But ultimately, the direction that South Sudan will move will depend on a new election, which will now determine even the fate of the two major personalities in the South Sudan.
Dr. Ona, even though, you know, all eyes are focused on the future of South Sudan, I mean, we all want this crisis to end, and it's understandable that the unity government is supposed to provide, you know, that path so that the country can move forward, being Africa's youngest country. But, I mean, it doesn't take away the fact that somebody has to take responsibility for the number of people who have died and for those who have been displaced. What happens, you know, to all of the figures we have been reading and speaking about over the months?
No, I think, again, in that case, I think that what South Sudan will need within this short space of time between now and when they will call elections is something like a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I think there was so much in the former Sudan, before South Sudan emerged as an independent country. And the psychology of violence, the psychology of conflict, the psychology of war had not sufficiently left the leaders of the new country before they now went down into the system of governance. I think while they were, immediately they went into government, instead of thinking about governance and development, they were still thinking about power and supremacy, you know, and it's understandable because they just emerged from war. And that war, in a way, was not very conclusive. Territories are not the won and lost, they say. It was international diplomacy that eventually brought South Sudan out of the former Sudan. So that some people still said that they could win in a war situation. Some people still said that they had unfairly lost out in the power calculation, and that if they had been left a little longer in the battlefield, they would have won. I think that's what ultimately pushed them into back to violence. But not that they have fought continually. And I don't think the situation has completely changed from what it was at independence. In the sense of either Sandra winning more territories or Masha showing more power, more military power. I don't think any of them are saying the situation. No, the situation they had at independence was the situation right now. So I think because of that, they will be more ready to think about it. And now, if they start thinking about peace, how they will consolidate that peace is to form a peace and reconciliation commission. So that everybody in the country will have opportunities to talk about their losses, about
Dr. Honor, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa and expressing your thoughts on the situation in South Sudan. Coming up on Network Africa, more people are making use of solar energy in light of current electricity crisis in Nigeria, but could it be a venture more expensive than expected? Join us again for more.